What's one childhood story your parents told you? They always remind me of the time I tried to run away, but only made it to the backyard. My dad and uncle made up a game called Fireball. You basically throw a baseball at someone as hard as you can, and if they flinch, you get to beat them up. They told me that my great-great-grandma walked across a whole river filled with corpses to get to my country. My dad told me my fourth great-grandfather came across on the Mayflower, and my fourth great-grandmother was an Indian chief's daughter. I recently started digging into my ancestry and DNA since my dad's passing, and am realizing none of that was true. They love reminding me of the time I tried to water the TV because I thought it would help grow faster. They told me I was just straight up running on the road, not understanding, or trying to get hit by a car. I'm not sure what I should think about that now. Probably the classic when I was your age, I had to walk miles to school story. My parents often told me about the time I tried to help in the kitchen and ended up making a big mess with flour everywhere. When I was 6, I used to lock my parents in the balcony. Dad never told this story. His childhood mate would when they'd been drinking. When Dad was about 15 in Australia, he was talking shit about the captain of the local first grade football side rugby league. Word got back to him, so he decided to sort my dad out. The captain kept a low profile and wore sunglasses for the next week. Dad toweled him up. There was a split in the family, and I didn't meet Dad's brother until a late teen. They'd got into a punch-up which Dad apparently won. I met a guy at work some years back that recognized my name. He knew of the family reputation and was almost cautious around me. Turned out that apparently Dad's brother was the best fighter in his hometown. From what I hear, he grew up rough. His dad pop was a debt collector on the side, but I never knew them growing up. Dad was a respected bank manager that would never get into something like a street fight. I find it hard to imagine him in scenarios like that, but apparently you don't fuck with him. My great-grandfather was the son of a prostitute. His mother abandoned him at a train station, and he was raised by the people that found him. He died in WW2. They sent him on a suicide mission. He stole a plane and flew back home because he wanted to see my grandfather be born. He re-enlisted under a new name. He died in the war again, but didn't come home that time. At least that was what I was told. I don't think it's true, but it's something a mother told her son in the 50s to make him feel better about being abandoned. I don't know why I was told this story. When I was like 3 or 4, my dad took me to the park, and he says I went down one of those really tall old metal slides with a bump type of thing. So when my little body got to the part where it went upwards, I became fully airborne for a good second, and somehow landed back on the slide, and safely went down the rest of it without a scratch. They told me about my first steps and their laughter. When the lights go on, be home by 6 cause that's when they come out. This one time my grandparents told me that my mother gave me to them because she couldn't take care of me properly, and my father is supposedly a pedo. They shared how I once tried to help cook dinner. My mom thought it was a funny story to talk about the time my brother was a baby, and he was crying so much that she decided to dump an entire container of Kool-Aid onto him. She felt very victimized by his crying, and she felt very vindicated by dumping the Kool-Aid on him. She told the story like she had triumphed against a terrible bully. She had a few other stories like that. When we kids got old enough to tell her that this story wasn't funny, she finally stopped telling it and eventually didn't remember it ever happening. My dad loves bringing up how I tried to be a gardener when I was little and pulled up all the plants in our yard thinking they were weeds. He was so proud of his new garden until I annihilated it in 10 minutes. He wouldn't let me near a shovel for years. When I was a kid, my mom told me that the car wouldn't start unless everyone in the car had their seatbelt on. I 100% believed this. So every time we got in the car, I'd yell at everyone to buckle up immediately, thinking we'd be stranded forever if they didn't. One day, I got in the car alone with my mom and buckled up like usual. The car started even though she hadn't put her seatbelt on yet. I sat there in shock, like I'd just uncovered a family secret. Turns out, my mom was just a genius at getting us to follow the rules. My parents told me that when my baby brother came home from the hospital after being born, I took my pacifier out and shoved it into his mouth, probably to stop him crying. But the way they told it to me was like I was telling them by that action that he's the baby now, I'm not the baby anymore.